Sonic the Hedgehog. This series means a lot to me, and today I'm going to explain why. Or at least, my goal is to give a somewhat satisfying explanation while talking through Sonic Mania, which is in itself a celebration of everything classic Sonic. But first, a quick history lesson on what Sonic Mania is and why it's kind of a big deal. Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic CD, Sonic 3, and Sonic & Knuckles were all released between 1991 and 1994. All but Sonic CD being released on the Sega Genesis. Sonic CD was released for the Sega CD, which was an add-on for the Sega Genesis that allowed for more advanced CD-based games. Of course, my recollection of this stuff at the time is non-existent. Come on, all these games came out by the time I was like 1. But I do remember playing Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles on the PC in like 1999, I think. I had to scour the internet for this bit of information, but yep, this must have been it. The Sonic & Knuckles collection released for Windows in 1997. I've literally never heard a single person talk about this release, ever. I didn't know what the heck a Sega was, I hadn't been exposed to one, but I did know that these two games, Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles, were awesome. I just knew them as super good computer games. I have some fond memories of crowding around a single keyboard to play the multiplayer mode of these games with my older brother. Man, good times. What I'm saying is, even though I didn't go through all the older Sonic games when they were new, I do consider myself a classic Sonic fan. It's just that, whereas most people probably relate to these games with memories of a controller, I relate to these games with memories of a spacebar and arrow buttons. I did end up playing the other classic games a bit later on, though, through the collection games that they put out on the GameCube, Sonic Mega Collection and Sonic Gems Collection. Now, after the Genesis era, Sonic came out with a few spin-off titles, and then he went full 3D with Sonic Adventure. They never did come out with the Sonic the Hedgehog 4, until 2010, that is, and it was alright, kind of underwhelming, really. It was just super short and the physics were way floatier, and Sonic had the homing attack, and the art direction was pretty generic mobile phone looking, actually. It was also divided into episodes, and the second episode came out a couple years later. It was a bit better than the first in my opinion, but it still wasn't, Sonic 4. So then imagine everyone's hype in 2016 when they unveil a new Sonic game, made by the fans, for the fans. It literally looks like the old Genesis games. An actual, faithful attempt to recreate the Genesis magic. And it came out, and it was good. It is good. Okay, sweet. I've caught you up on why it's a big deal. Now I can talk about it. Wait, no, one more thing. I need to clarify that I'm playing Sonic Mania Plus, which is the physical release of this game that came out a year later. Okay, here we go. The game consists of 12 zones, each with 2 acts. At the end of every act is a boss. The bosses I found to be particularly good in this game, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there. You can play these stages with 5 different characters: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Mighty, and Ray. Mighty and Ray being 2 obscure characters that showed up in 1 or 2 spin-offs in the 90s that then vanished. Their inclusion here is awesome, and it's just a cool reference for fans. It also adds more replay value and play styles to the game. All these characters control pretty much the same, with the abilities of jumping, spin dashing, and rolling, but they all have slightly different properties and aerial actions. When Sonic is in midair, he can hold the jump button again for a second to ready a spin dash that will go off as soon as he touches the ground. This drop dash, as they call it, is new to this game, and I'll have a bit more to say about it later, but I like it. Sonic's the only character that can utilize special abilities of elemental shields as well. Tails can fly. You can rapidly press the jump button to gain height, or lay off the button to go back down. It's good for exploring and occasionally saving yourself from falling off cliffs if you need to do that. Tails' tails also have a propeller hitbox that can cheese a couple of bosses in the game. Knuckles jumps slightly lower than the other characters, just like he did back in the old days, but you can also glide long distances in a straight line, and he can climb up walls. Something worth noting about Knuckles is that his playthrough of the game is slightly different than that of the other characters. He starts Green Hill Zone in a different place that better shows off his abilities. He has a completely exclusive level in Mirage Saloon Act 1, and he's the only character to fight the Heavy King, getting ahead of myself there again with the bosses. Then we have Mighty the Armadillo. His stuff is a bit more situational, but I like him a lot. He can do the hammer drop to slam himself down towards the ground. This goes through anything destructible, and it can be useful for navigating quickly. Kinda reminds me of the Stomp from Sonic Unleashed, actually. Also, you know how enemy bullets bounce off shields in this game? Bullets bounce right off Mighty in general, as long as he's spinning. He also gets 1 free bounce off of spikes, so if you see you're about to hit some spikes, just make sure to bounce off them so you don't lose your rings. So yeah, Mighty has a cool combination of offense, defense, and flow to him that I really like. Then there's Ray the Flying Squirrel, a speedrunner's dream. His glide is like using the cape in Super Mario World. He can hold the jump button and periodically pull back to maintain his airborne-ness. That's totally a word. Ray doesn't have a hitbox when he does this, so getting hit by hovering enemies is actually really easy. You kinda need to know where you're going. Also, nobody mentions this, but Ray jumps slightly higher than the other characters, I swear. I know this because he's the only character that can jump into this boss without waiting for him to lower himself. Okay, I'll talk about the bosses now. No, wait, gotta talk about why they're there first. Gotta talk about the plot. Okay, so in this game, Eggman has made some eggs that have gone ham. They're called the hard-boiled heavies. In the beginning of the game, Sonic and Tails find these guys digging up the Phantom Ruby on Angel Island. The Phantom Ruby has the power and tendency to warp time and space, kind of like a supercharged Chaos Emerald with a mind of its own. The Phantom Ruby transforms the heavies into their more powerful, free-willed selves, and it warps Sonic and friends all over the place throughout the game. When it comes to the heavies, there's Heavy Gunner, Heavy Shinobi, Heavy Rider, Heavy Magician, and Heavy King. And yep, you fight them all, alongside various other bosses. And here we are. Bosses. They're good. I like them. I just think there's a lot of creativity on display here. For one, the game throws you off pretty early by having the Death Egg robot, the final boss from Sonic 2, as the second boss of the game. Obviously with an appropriately scaled difficulty and a new way of fighting him. And the boss I mentioned earlier, the one that I said you could cheese with Ray, his attack patterns are different weather effects that change depending on the weather channel on the screen in the background. Okay. You fight Heavy Gunner by bouncing his missiles back at him while continuously running alongside his helicopter. You fight Eggman's giant spider mech by bouncing it into spikes on the wall. You take Eggman's hovercraft from him and suck him up into your propeller. Heavy Magician fights you by transforming into forgotten Sonic characters. You face Eggman in a game of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. These aren't like the most amazing battles ever, but they're consistently creative and even kind of funny at times. Okay, sorry, I got a little carried away there. So, going back to Heavy Magician, he's supposed to spawn the boss of Mirage Saloon Act 1, but one time I got to that point in the level and he just failed to show up. When I restarted the level, because I had no other choice, Knuckles was invisible. I guess a magician never reveals his secrets. So, I say the bosses are creative, but the levels, not so much. Or rather, they are creative in their design, but the selection is interesting. Out of the 12 playable zones, only 4 of them are actually new. All 4 of the new ones are great. You have a giant movie studio crammed full of Sonic references, an abandoned printing press, a western saloon, and an Eggman battleship. Who thinks of this stuff? The returning zones are remixed heavily, with only certain memorable short stretches being ripped from the originals, like the water slide part in Hydrocity Zone. Hydro City Zone? How do you pronounce this place? I've been wondering that for like 20 years. I should really just Google it. Obviously, the following is a small complaint, but I do wish the ratio of old to new zones was a little better, especially considering the concept of revisiting old areas was already done in Sonic Generations. Now, let me take a short break here to discuss Sonic level design, not just in this game, but as a whole. And yes, this is relevant. I'll come back to Sonic Mania, don't worry. When describing classic Sonic level design, I've heard a couple different terms thrown around, oftentimes interchangeably. These terms being momentum-based platforming and stop-and-go platforming. Despite being used interchangeably, these things are very different, and I would personally argue that one of them is actually a good thing while the other might not be. Momentum-based platforming refers to how Sonic builds speed and loses speed based on the curvature of the terrain, and how Sonic can use the physics at play to his advantage. Stop and go refers to the fact that Sonic doesn't need to be all about speed, and that the levels include stretches of running and rolling, but also include stretches of platforming, because this is a platforming game after all. While I think praising the games for being momentum-based makes sense, it is of my personal opinion that pointing out the stop-and-go nature of the classic games is actually pointing out a flaw. Yeah, this is the part of the video where I admit to you that even though I'm a classic fan, I've never really been one to put those games on a pedestal. When Sonic moved forward, so did I. And I've gotta say, whenever I go back to the classics, I find myself loving them, but I also find them somewhat underwhelming at times. You'll have these super flashy, memorable moments of running faster than the camera on occasion, but then you kind of come to an abrupt stop and jump around platforms slowly. Honestly, when Sonic is just kind of jumping around slowly, I don't really think he's at his best. In a lot of slower paced section of the classics, Sonic just seems like any other platformer to me. And yeah, Sonic isn't all about speed, but he is all about flow. At least that's how I've always seen it. Looking forward to the Sonic Advance games, something I've always loved about them is how they have a lot of speed boosters and springs and other stage gimmicks that almost guide you through the level. It isn't autopiloted. You'd still need to change directions, jump at the right time to stay on the more optimal paths, and you need to stay actively alert to avoid enemies. These games require more input from the player, not less. I've heard some people say that the Sonic Advance games take the springs and dash panels too far, but I think that's mostly just Sonic Advance 2. The point I'm trying to get at is that in most parts of the Sonic Advance games, you rarely have to stop if you're good enough to follow the flow of the level. These games, along with the Sonic Rush games, only compartmentalize the speed and platforming occasionally. Most of the time, though, they occur almost simultaneously. And, hot take here, that's how I think Sonic should play. Just look at the opening of Sonic CD. Sonic is acrobatic and pulls off super speed maneuvers and traverses in this really fast parkour style of movement. I think that designing levels that can potentially be traversed without stopping, provided that the player is good enough, should kind of be the point. And I think that a lot of the time, the classics kind of fall short in that regard. Now, how does all this relate back to Sonic Mania? Sonic Mania's level design is amazing and I love it. It's such a good blend, feeling primarily classic in overall feel, but with a lot more creative gimmicks that sort of give you that push through the level. This level design, combined with skilled usage of the drop dash, make this game's sense of flow buttery smooth. I think that one of my favorite levels in the game is Chemical Plant Act 2. You launch off ramps and land in this sticky stuff, then jump out, making sure not to hit anything. Then you stand on these giant syringes that make the floor super bouncy and dude, it's just so good. I guess what I'm saying, and trying to put emphasis on even, is that it seems to me like the creators of this game looked forward to later 2D Sonic games, to all of Sonic, to make the best game they could. I obviously can't confirm that, but it really does feel that way to me. They didn't only listen to negative reviewers that bash Sonic games, pretty much out of tradition at this point, and they didn't make a classic game that felt exactly like the classics, or the only good ones, as they would say. They listened to the fans and made something that was more than just derivative. They made something that feels evolutionary. Not revolutionary, but evolutionary for sure. After the goofiness that was Shadow the Hedgehog in 2005, and the general non-goodness of Sonic 06 in 2006, Sonic pretty quickly became a running joke in the video game community and pretty much from then on has been seen as a has-been series. 3D Sonic bashing became so commonplace among the gaming community and the internet that even the 3D Sonic games that came out before Shadow the Hedgehog, like Sonic 1 and 2, began to be seen as terrible retroactively. And yeah, I'm sure those games had their detractors even at the time, but that didn't seem to be the common perception. Contrary to popular belief, early 3D Sonic games were actually very well received critically. Now, I wanted to talk about this stuff partially for the sake of future videos, but connecting things back to Sonic Mania, the fact that this game feels as good and evolutionary as it does is pretty cool to me. After the echo chamber that is the internet had its hands on the series for over a decade before this game came out, they could have played it as safe as possible and made a game that feels like Sonic the Hedgehog 3 Part 2, if you know what I mean. Instead, this game feels like a genuine sequel. This game really does feel like the long-lost 32-bit Sonic 4 for Sega Saturn that simply never came out. This game utilizes simple 3D effects and sprite scaling, just like they would have, bragged about back in the day. And the characters even have more frames of animation for the sake of fluidity. They also expanded upon old ideas. Remember Blue Sphere from Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Well, here they aren't the Chaos Emerald minigames, they're the checkpoint minigames. And when you clear one of these, you get a medal. These medals are used to unlock some neat, cool little things. A couple of these unlockables that you'll get pretty early on involve changing Sonic's mid-air move. Don't like the drop dash very much? You can change it to the Insta-Shield from Sonic 3, or the Super Peel-Out from Sonic CD, which I called the Figure 8 Dash when I was a kid, and that's a way cooler name. You can also unlock the ability to play Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine with another player, and you can even unlock and Knuckles mode. This mode makes it so that Knuckles will follow your character around the same way that Tails can. You can use and Knuckles mode with any character, even Knuckles. What the heck? That being said, unlocking some of this stuff can take a while. Some of these Blue Sphere stages are really tough, and honestly, I am just the worst at these. Now, at this point, considering how long the video is probably going to be, I'm just going to mention a couple of things real quickly. For one, the way you get Chaos Emeralds in this game is the same as Sonic 3 and K. You find hidden rings that transport you to special stages. Some characters are better at finding these rings than others. The stages themselves are intentionally designed to look dated, and it's actually super charming. The level of difficulty in some of... keeping that burp in. The level of difficulty in some Sonic games when it comes to collecting the Chaos Emeralds can be ridiculous. I'm happy to say here it's very manageable. You can exit and re-enter a level if you fail, or you can just go search for another special ring. Most of them can be done in a few tries or less, I'd say. Every character has their own stash of Chaos Emeralds. Collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds with a certain character gives you that character's super form. The super forms are awesome, and I'll just leave it at that. Getting all the Chaos Emeralds as Sonic, and beating the game unlocks the final boss. The true ending of the game is super cool because it ties directly into the events of Sonic Forces. Or at least it would be cool if Sonic Forces was good. Sorry, I wasn't a big fan of that one. I can talk about it later, maybe. Sonic Mania Plus also adds a remix mode. This changes the rules of the game by adding a partner system that doubles as your lives system. The level layouts are also slightly altered, and the stages have been palette swapped. And yeah, this leads me to my conclusion about this game. I love it, obviously, but why does this whole thing feel bittersweet? Well, I'll tell you why. Remember a bit ago when I talked about how the internet viewed Sonic in the 2000s? Yeah. That time period is called, by the fandom, the Sonic Dark Age, and I like that age, or at least a lot of what it had to offer. I was a kid during this time, or a teenager, rather. I spent way too much time being frustrated at the world in general, and knowing that my favorite series was a commonplace of mockery really got to me, a bit more than it should have. I only heard bad things about my favorite things, you know? I remember wishing so badly that people would be willing to give new things a chance. Now, I'm not saying that the series didn't do anything to deserve criticism at all. That would be a pretty ridiculous statement. It's just that, even in retrospect, I can't help but feel that a lot of the games that came out in this time period were really good, if not, at the very least, ambitious. Sonic Riders is a really fun racing game with a crazy high skill curve. Sonic Rush Adventure? Dude, this game is rad. The storybook games I have somewhat mixed feelings on. Sonic Unleashed? This game is amazing, and I will die on this hill. So, yeah, I liked Sonic during the age where it was an uncool thing to do. And having the gaming world freak out when Sonic Mania came along, I don't know, it was a bit frustrating. Did people really think that this was actually what Sonic needed? A return to form? After Sonic Generations already did that? I love this game, but I'm not sure if I like the implications that come with it. Classic Sonic, is that really the only thing people will ever be willing to enjoy about this series? Well, things might be a bit better than I think. Just maybe. See, I wasn't the biggest fan of Sonic Lost World back in 2013, and the series had a bit of a drought after that, so during the mid-2010s, I didn't really think about or keep track of Sonic that much at all. But funnily enough, during this time, and even a bit before this time, I found myself meeting people who have good memories of these games like the ones I have, especially Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube. This game comes up in conversation between gamers a lot, without me having to be the one to bring it up. Seriously, almost everybody likes that game. Heck, City Escape played at my wedding, and I didn't put it on the playlist. And the person who requested it for my wife, not me. It was destiny. But even beyond SA2, people do seem to be opening up to liking these games a lot more in recent years. A lot of times people seem to feel the need to clarify that they like them somewhat ironically or something like that, and that, looking at it, says a lot about the situation as a whole. I know it might sound like an exaggeration, but the whole situation with the public perception of the Sonic the Hedgehog series kinda taught me a lot about opinions. Why would the internet say one thing, while people in person express something completely different? I used the word once before in this video. Echo chambers. Parroted opinions. Now, when something echoes around the internet, there's usually some truth to it. But, you know what else is true about the internet? It's easy to collect information and comment your own spin on that information in an attempt to seem smart and receive validation. I mean, yeah, it's easier to speak your opinion on the internet in general, but why share your real feelings and be disliked when you can share other people's opinions and receive actual likes? Another thing is that the internet critics who hate on things, for whatever reason, generally receive more attention than those that talk about the things that they like. People, I think, tend to feel smart when they see the faults in things. With the Sonic series being mocked by some really famous YouTube faces, especially back then, I think people were just quick to assume all the negative information as truth, recycle the information, be validated, and so on. It was this really huge, messy snowball of hate. I'm not saying there aren't any people who have played these games that genuinely think they're trash, but the people I've met who have played them and enjoyed them far outnumber the people I've met who talk badly of them. And by the way, I don't think I've ever met a person who says modern Sonic games suck that has actually played a single one past Sonic Heroes. Not a single person. I know now, as an adult, that it wasn't that I was the only person to like the Sonic Dark Age. I was just the only person who was brave enough to say it. Or, to say that again with more humility, I was the only person that lacked the social intelligence to hide that fact. Either way though, I wasn't really better than anybody else. A mature person is okay with themselves and doesn't feel the need to hide superfluous facts, such as things that they enjoy. But honestly, it was still super immature of me to get so worked up over this stuff, just like it was immature of other people to hide what they liked. I always wanted people to know that I wasn't so immature that I would like a series that was just full of garbage. But part of humility is understanding that you don't need to prove yourself to anybody. C.S. Lewis said, "When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to feel very grown up." I feel like, in a way, me making this video is kind of like me coming to terms with this. Listen, I like Sonic games. Not all of them, but a decent amount of them. And I know that a lot of other people feel the same way. And even if this wasn't the case, I'm still allowed to not only feel what I feel, but I can take rest in how I feel. I don't need my opinion to be a popular one in order to feel okay about it. And I hope nobody else ever feels that pressure. Sonic games are radical. And even though the positive reception of Sonic Mania feels a bit bittersweet to me, I don't really have to focus on that bitterness. It makes me feel a bit weary either way, because I'm hoping that Sonic Team doesn't think that they can only release classic Sonic games now, but that's neither here nor there right now. Also, it is encouraging to know that in the last couple years, the adventure fanbase has been more vocal. So, regardless of any stigma, I'm always gonna like this series, or at least the best of it. Like what you like, everybody. Me, personally, I'm always gonna have a case of Sonic Mania.